Yes, where have we gone wrong? Just a quick little thing on my story. A couple of thousand acres. Myself and son Nick on the property. It's 300 k's northwest of Sydney. Granite soils, acidic soils. No irrigation, and now it's a restored grassland, native grassland. Mostly merino sheep. 4,000 merino sheep. About a quarter of the place is grown to crops. Some cattle trading. None for the last 10 years because there hasn't been enough bloody rain to grow enough to run enough cattle. So, but a big part of our enterprise mixes native grass seed, and that's happened because of the change in management. But I'm actually not going to talk about what I do today. I'm just going to talk about the big picture stuff. That's a fairly big picture. For 10,000 years, with the management, with the way agriculture started, and it started, as Charlie mentioned, in Mesopotamia 10,000 years ago, the way we've grazed animals and the way that we have grown crops has just totally stuffed this planet. So we need to really ask ourselves, were the methods of growing crops and managing animals wrong from the start? And yes, they were. Right from 10,000 years ago, we stuffed up. And the consequences of that are happening now. So, just to move on, because I've only got a short period of time to do this, until the 1950s, agriculture was practiced with basically almost an organic system, small amount of pesticides and small amounts of fertiliser. Now, actually, Rachel, in her talk last night, covered a little bit of this. So, after the Second World War, there were concerns, and they were genuine concerns, about producing enough food to feed the growing numbers of people on this planet. Same thing's being said today. So, a new agricultural revolution was developed to solve these problems. They were genuine concerns, and there was good reasons for doing this. This was labelled the Green Revolution, and it developed high-yielding crops and fertiliser and pesticides that would make those crops yield to their maximum. Now, that Green Revolution was actually very successful at the time and for what it was designed to do. It did produce huge amounts of food. It did relieve a lot of people on this planet from hunger and poverty, and it did actually create wealth for farmers. Now, sounds like a great idea. Wonderful idea. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it has created many problems. It's been an ecological disaster for our farms and our planet. The main problems we're running into now on this planet, and including problems with climate, collapsing ecosystems, is directly related to what was done from the 1950s on. So, declining soil health, dependency on fertilisers, dependency on pesticides, reduction in food quality, and human health problems. Now, wealth is actually with multinational companies. Wealth went from farmers to multinational companies. If you don't believe that, have a look at this. This is a graph from Canada. We're trying to put together a graph for Australia at the moment. We'll have one, but it'll be pretty well the same. That's from 1926 to 2016. And farmers in the from sort of the 1930s to about 1970 or so were doing okay in relation to this is the big end of town. These are multinational companies we're talking about here. Not having a go at their local supplier, he's trying to make a quid like the rest of us. But multinational companies, and start looking at that percentage of profit while farmers are going broke. That needs to change. If we're going to feed the human population on this planet, it bloody has to change real quick. So, many of the things that we do in agriculture make someone else wealthy. Us farmers get the wrong end of the pineapple. We're going broke while those multinational companies are making billions of dollars. So, it has also created major serious health problems. And agriculture is supposed to be about food. Something seriously wrong when we start to look at this. And this, Charlie had one of these slides up here. This is from UK. I won't go into the details, but decline in all those minerals in our vegetables from 1940 to 1991. Really interesting, very difficult to find this information for 2019 or 2018, which might answer a few questions, or we should be asking a few questions of why you can't get that information. I'd suggest it'd be worse than that now. So, meat is no different. Decline in all those minerals, copper, everything. If we look at Australian fruit and vegetables, we don't miss out either. In fact, I suggest we're probably worse. We're looking at calcium reduction of 89% there. Now, it is possible today to buy an orange without any vitamin C in it at all. Why wouldn't we be sick? So, dairy industry doesn't miss out either. It goes on and on. Now, there's some interesting information here. This is from Rothamsted in England, which is the longest running research centre in the world, or agriculture. And from the 1960s, when wheat varieties were being bred in that green revolution, dwarf varieties of wheat, where they were concentrating on yield, also saw in the grain produced great reductions in zinc, iron, copper, and a lot of those trace elements as well. So it was also about the breeding programs where a lot of human health problems came. So, but most of those decline in nutrients in food is related to a serious decline in soil health and soil carbon. So poor quality food is caused by poor quality soil. Directly related. Our human health problems are directly related to the soil that we produce the food in. So high rates of fertiliser and pesticides have done serious damage to our farms and soil. It has been an ecological disaster. Very few people ever put agriculture and ecology in the same sentence. We need to be speaking about them together. But virtually all the problems we have in agriculture are not agricultural ones, they're ecological problems. So, increasing fertiliser and pesticides won't fix those problems. The farm ecosystem is broken. So how can we fix it? And I guess that's what a lot of people we are asking here today. How can we fix these problems? It's all right to just say, put what I did up there, but unless we have some answers, that's not really going to solve a lot at all. So how can we fix it? I've got this slide up here for a very good reason. That's actually, that photo there are my great-grandparents. The observant amongst you will notice my great-grandfather's only got one leg. Just want to assure you, it's not a genetic defect. And I haven't got a wooden leg. So, now, he happened to fall off a wagon. I can't start telling too many stories here because I'll last a couple of days. So my great-grandfather fell off a wagon, got run over, broke his leg, and had to have it amputated. Where I'm getting at here, old Granny here actually went out and ran the farm. He went in the house and looked after 9 kids. Granny went out and did the farm work. Why I'm telling this story is that old Granny here had a huge influence on everyone around her because she managed the farm differently, and I was fortunate enough that her eldest grandson spent a lot of time with her. her eldest grandson happened to be my father. What old Granny did was pass on a nurturing philosophy and work in her grandson and everyone else around her. Where I'm getting at here is simply to say we need more women in agriculture. I've seen that happen with my great-grandmother and everyone that's passed after her or followed her, that the problem, one of the major problems we've got with agriculture is it's been dominated by males, it's been dominated by us blokes, and we just want to kill things. And we kill things with ploughs and bulldozers and pesticides. Women are nurturers. Agriculture is supposed to be about nurturing the land, nurturing animals, nurturing the soil. Women will do that. We need more women in agriculture, all branches of agriculture. Then we'll probably fix well, we will. We will fix a lot of our agricultural problems. Be nice if we had a few more female prime ministers and that as well. So that is, I reckon, one of the most important things that we can do is simply to have more women in agriculture. I think it'll solve many of our problems. So, and the problem with that, the way agriculture's been practiced, we've isolated ourselves from nature, and our farms and soils and animals should be nurtured. Okay, now if we allow the farm and soil to function as an ecosystem, which it will if we nurture it, we will have more diverse pasture and grasslands and crops. We'll have better nutrient cycling, which means less fertiliser. We'll have no insect attack, no insecticide, less animal disease, and we'll start to make more profit. Like as Mark Gardner pointed out there in his talk before lunch, when we do start to manage this way, we actually can be just as profitable, but with a lot less risk. So how do we do this? Really simple stuff. Grow more bloody plants. Grow plants and more plants. Plants will drive it for us. And so it's plants that will restore our farms and soils, generate profit, but not monocultures of plants. We want perennial grasslands, and that's really where we should be aiming back to. We can grow crops into perennial grasslands, which is a pasture cropping stuff that I started, or we can grow multi-species annual cover crops, or we can do all of that. Today I'm going to talk about multi-species crops. But it's not the only way. We also need to get our grazing right. And Graham is going to be speaking about that this afternoon. But we need to get all of this functioning together. So, multi-species crops can mimic the function of grassland in an annual sense. We can drive it with multiple species of plants. Now, the best benchmark that we have to mimic this on is grasslands. For many millions of years, grasslands have dominated the planet. They've fed many millions of grazing animals as well as predators and humans. They didn't suffer, these grasslands didn't suffer from nutrient deficiency and disease or anything much went wrong with them, or insect attack. So, how did those original grasslands grow huge amounts of food without disease or insect attack or anyone running around with a bag of fertiliser? In balanced ecosystems, nutrients are cycled and made available, and disease and insect attack are controlled by natural enemies. We really don't need any more information, any more knowledge than mimicking natural systems. We've got a benchmark to work off, we've got a blueprint to work off, we just need to copy it or mimic it a lot closer. So, but our farms can function the same. So, where do nutrients come from? It's a question I get asked all the time. If we stop fertilising or reduce our fertiliser, aren't we mining the soil? We've been told a heap of bullshit for a long time. That does not happen. We now have a lot of data on this, that we can actually increase nutrients by managing well and driving it with plants. The main reason we've been told that heap of garbage is to sell more fertiliser. Whoops, sorry, too fast. So, all the nutrients that are on the planet now have always been here. This planet of ours is a 4 billion year old ball of rock. Bacteria and fungi use enzymes and acids to break down that rock, and plants actually created soil. Plants evolved and created soil and created the cycle of life, death and decay, which actually creates soil. So the minerals have always been here, and they're still here. So how do plants make soil nutrients available? Soil microbes require plants for food. Plants feed root exudates and decaying plant material to microbes, cycle nutrients and make nutrients available. And interestingly, deep plant roots cycle nutrients and make nutrients available. So it's all still about growing plants. Just a little bit of information here. If you're wondering about that, this is Tim Wiley, West Australian Department of Ag, quite a few years ago now. I'm not going to dwell on this, but this is under a perennial plant in that West Australian sand alongside it. And the plant has increased nutrients, carbon by 400%, phosphorus by 300%, potassium by 300%, sulphur. Plants are driving that. The only thing, no fertiliser put on that, plants are driving nutrients. Plants don't, like we've been told all the time, if a plant is growing there, we need to fertilise the plant because it's using nutrients. That's a great heap of garbage. All the plant is doing is it's cycling nutrients and going deep in the soil and bringing nutrients up from depth. Plants don't use nutrients, they cycle nutrients. If we remove that plant, take it away, we've removed nutrients. But most of the time, they cycle nutrients. So, plants that cycle nutrients, plants that create topsoil, plants that create good structured soil, and plants that build soil carbon. You're going to get sick of me talking about plants. How do we restore our farms? Change the way we graze animals, grow crops without killing existing grasslands, which is pasture cropping, grow multi-species cover crops, or do all of the above. The more things we put together, the faster our gains are. And as I'm sure Charlie mentioned it, if we fix one of these things, we can fix the lot all at one go. So, plants will restore our farm and our soil and our profit. Now, that's a really interesting slide, that one. Love that slide. This young girl in a multi-species crop, picking vegetables out of it. And that's another thing too, we can grow vegetables on a huge scale with these multi-species crops. Now, most of the crops that are growing in conventional agriculture now, you wouldn't let your daughter go in them, let alone pick vegetables out of them, with all the pesticides that are in there. So, plants will restore our farms and our soils and our profit. Thank you. And now I'll hand it over to Grant.